Welcome back to Real America. Joining me now, Republican congressional candidate for New York's 3rd District and the apparent winner and flipper of that seat, George Santos. George, welcome back to the show. We had you on a few weeks ago while you were right in the middle of the race. I know we spoke about your battle, I believe, with COVID in the middle of the race. There was all kinds of hurdles you had to overcome. Give us the good news. How is your race looking right now as we speak today on Friday the 13th?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me back. Yeah, Friday the 13th in 2020 is noted to be, you know,
what else could go wrong? What else could happen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, the race is looking good. We're still in the lead. We were the true underdogs of the cycle. Nobody really thought we could get this far, and we're counting the ballots. There's a lot of irregularities going on. If you follow me on social media, we're just trying to be very kosher about everything that's going on to stay true to the process. I don't have any intention of diminishing the trust of the public trust on the process, but we are being very diligent on that process, and we're ahead, and we're fighting to win and make this the big win and the big upset of New York.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, and one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show today was to discuss the red versus blue wave, because leading up to this election, that's all we heard about. Mainstream media, out of Biden and all the Democrats' mouth is the country's fed up with conservatives and Trump and Republicans, and it's going to be a big blue wave. Now we know that was a bunch of BS. We also know that these polls, I believe, like the president and others now, they were almost like voter suppression polls, because these polls were nowhere even near close. They had to know it. And it discouraged voters, it discouraged donors. It may have, in fact, turned people off from even showing up to the polls. So leading up to your election, what were the polls showing you versus, and I may mess up the guy's last name, the incumbent there. Say it for me.
So, Tom Suozzi.
Suozzi.
So,
okay. I'm going to get Tom's
there you
name
go.
right.
So there you go. So here's what happens. The reality is we were polling strong in our internal polls, and the external polls were showing us 10 to 12 points behind the entire race with no improvement whatsoever. So the way I look at it is, yeah, I believe there was some kind and level of voter suppression with those polls. It discouraged people from actually going out to vote, donating to candidates who actually had a chance. I ran a lean campaign. I was outspent 7-1. I had under $500,000. My opponent had $2.7 million. And I tell people all the time, there was a blue wave. It was the back the blue wave. That's the blue wave that hit them, and they didn't expect it to hit them, because anybody who thinks the message of socialism and lawlessness is ever going to resonate with the American people, you have got to be out of your mind.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if there's any place on the face of our country where they appreciate police officers after 9/11, it's New York. And any district, I think, in the entire state, not just in and around New York City, but that state understands you need law enforcement, you need law and order, you need cops. And for the Democrat Party to keep spewing that defund police, which they're still doing to this day, it's still coming out of some of the extreme leftist mouth on Twitter yesterday, this week. I'm glad to see that a handful of Democrats have come out and said, you should stop saying that. We're not going to defund the police. But where have they been for the last 8-9 months since all this nonsense started?
Well, they were hedging their bets, and they hedged poorly, because a real hedger in finance, or a hedge fund manager, they would know to play a little safer. They subscribed all the way to the left to the defund the police movement, and when it blew up in their face, they instantly regretted it. And now, as we all saw the leaked call from the Democratic caucus, they're freaking out. Socialism or socialized should never be used again in our language. And if you want to talk about defunding the police, we will lose every seat in Congress. Those were, and I'm paraphrasing here, but those were words that came out of the mouths of leaders in the Democratic caucus shortly before Nancy Pelosi interrupted and said that this president has a mandate. Now, the question is, what is that mandate? Because it's clearly not the American people.
Yeah, well, the hypocrisy on the left leading up to this election is just baffling to me in the first place, George. Let's talk about those discrepancies a little bit more, because that obviously is the headline of every newscast since election night. Voter fraud, voter irregularities. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. And I, for one, have been very hesitant to push this way or that way. All I keep saying on this show, George, is that I want a fair and honest election and that I want every single legal vote counted properly. And I think to do so, we're going to have to do audits in several of these key battleground states when it comes to the presidential election to get the truth. Now, in your race, what specifics are you seeing there, and what are they doing to ensure your constituents that all legal votes are being counted in the 3rd district?
Absolutely. So one major discrepancy is there were reports that my name was actually missing on a couple of ballots within the district. We're investigating that, looking into it. There is proof now of at least one ballot. It's factual. My name was left out of that one ballot. Second thing, my poll watchers and my staff and my legal team show up for counting on one of the Board of Elections within my district, which is the Nassau County Board of Elections, and they weren't told that they could not challenge signatures because they have all already been looked over by their bipartisan efforts. They've been cured, all the issues. Well, to further the issue is when my poll watchers arrived, the ballots they were about to review, the envelopes had already been unopened. So there are open ballots. People aren't able to challenge signatures or the state of the integrity of the actual ballot. And at the end of the day, they did not allow my staff to stay and watch them feed the ballots to the machines. Now, if you have nothing to hide, and if you're a bipartisan, nonpartisan organization, there should be no reason that poll watchers cannot watch you feed machines.
Wow, this seems like a repetitive theme I keep hearing from my guests coming on this show. Of course, you won't see it on any of the mainstream, lamestream, as I call them, media networks, but we keep hearing that. We had a gal on yesterday, a whistleblower from Wayne County. That's where Detroit sits, the biggest counting place, saying they were not allowing folks to observe on the GOP side. And that happened in Pennsylvania, we know. We're hearing reports of that in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. All of these key battleground states, no observers. And then obviously now you can get into the whole Dominion and software. The lady yesterday said they were feeding in 50 ballots about 7 to 8 times. So you're getting 350 to 400 votes out of 50. So there's some questionable stuff. George Santos, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Best of luck with the outcome. It sounds like you've won this one, and we're going to be saying Congressman Santos the next time you and I talk. Sound about right?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and let's hope so. Let's
All right.
stay cautiously optimistic. Thank you.
Fingers crossed, George. Thanks for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate it.